There's a teaching buried so deep in ancient Stoic texts that modern scholars actively avoid discussing it. Universities refuse to include it in their curricula, and self-help gurus pretend it doesn't exist, because this single concept threatens the entire foundation of how modern society keeps people dependent, controllable, and profitable. This isn't just another philosophical idea you can add to your collection of inspiring quotes. This is a complete demolition of every lie you've been told about happiness, success, security, and meaning. A revelation so powerful that once you truly understand it, you can never again be manipulated by the systems designed to keep you weak, confused, and constantly seeking external solutions to internal problems. The ancient Stoics who discovered this teaching became so mentally independent, so emotionally unshakable, so immune to social control that the Roman Empire itself had to adapt its strategies around their influence. But here's what terrifies modern institutions most. If this knowledge became widespread, if people truly understood what the Stoics discovered about the nature of reality and human potential, the entire structure of consumer capitalism, political manipulation, and social engineering would collapse overnight, because you cannot sell solutions to problems that don't exist, and you cannot control people who understand that they already possess everything they need for complete fulfillment. This teaching doesn't just change how you think, it changes who you are at the most fundamental level, transforming you from someone who seeks power into someone who embodies power, from someone who wants freedom into someone who is freedom, from someone who hopes for happiness into someone who discovers that happiness was never something you could lose in the first place. If you're ready to discover the hidden Stoic teaching that modern society desperately wants to keep secret, and learn why this ancient wisdom threatens every system designed to profit from your dissatisfaction, hit that like button, share this forbidden knowledge with someone ready to break free from mental slavery, comment below about which lie you're most ready to stop believing, and subscribe to this channel for more hidden truths that will liberate you from the illusions that keep most people trapped in cycles of seeking, wanting, and never finding what they're looking for. Marcus Aurelius wrote these words in his private journal, never intending them to be read by anyone else, which is why their full implications have been hidden from public understanding. Very little disturbs the happiness of a wise man who has taken hold of the principles of philosophy, and even those things that do disturb him are opportunities for wisdom. But the hidden teaching lies not in what Marcus said, but in what he assumed, that happiness is not something you achieve, acquire, or create, but something you already possess that can only be disturbed by ignorance of its presence. The teaching that modern society fears most is this: you are not broken and do not need to be fixed. You are not incomplete and do not need to be completed. You are not insufficient and do not need to be improved. You already possess, right now, in this moment, everything necessary for complete fulfillment, and the only thing standing between you and the recognition of this fact is your belief in the lie that you lack something essential. This teaching terrifies modern society because our entire economic, political, and social system depends on people believing they are fundamentally inadequate and need external products, services, experiences, relationships, achievements, or substances to become whole. If people understood that they are already complete, the advertising industry would collapse, because you cannot sell solutions to people who don't believe they have problems. If people realize they already possess everything they need for happiness, the entertainment industry would crumble, because you cannot distract people who are content with their present reality. If people knew they were already enough exactly as they are, the pharmaceutical industry would lose billions, because you cannot medicate people who understand that their dissatisfaction comes from false beliefs rather than chemical imbalances. Let me tell you about Jennifer, a woman who accidentally discovered this hidden teaching through the total failure of every external solution she had tried for 30 years. Jennifer had spent 3 decades and hundreds of thousands of dollars seeking happiness through every method modern society offers: therapy to fix her psychological problems, medications to balance her brain chemistry, self-help seminars to improve her mindset, yoga and meditation to find inner peace, relationships to provide love and validation, career success to create meaning and purpose, travel to broaden her perspective, shopping to fill the emptiness, fitness programs to improve her body, image, and spiritual practices to connect with something greater than herself. Each solution worked temporarily, providing brief moments of relief or satisfaction before the underlying sense of incompleteness returned, often stronger than before. Jennifer was trapped in an endless cycle of seeking, finding temporary relief, losing the relief, and seeking again, convinced that the next solution would be the one that finally made her happy permanently. She had become a consumer of happiness rather than someone who possessed happiness, always looking outside herself for what she believed was missing inside herself. Then Jennifer experienced what she later called her awakening through exhaustion. She was sitting in her expensive apartment, surrounded by the products of her seeking, latest self-help books, meditation cushions, fitness equipment, designer clothes, expensive supplements, and suddenly realized that despite having tried everything that was supposed to make her happy, she was more miserable than when she started. But in that moment of recognizing the failure of all external solutions, Jennifer had an experience that changed everything. She noticed that she was aware of her misery, which meant there was something in her that was separate from the misery, something that could observe her emotional states without being consumed by them. Jennifer began to explore this awareness that seemed to exist independently of her thoughts, feelings, circumstances, and experiences. She discovered that this awareness was always present, always peaceful, always complete, regardless of what was happening in her mind or her life. Her happiness hadn't been missing. It had been obscured by her constant focus on what she thought was wrong with her present experience and her endless seeking for something better. The moment Jennifer stopped looking for happiness and started recognizing the awareness that was already perfectly content, she found what she had been seeking everywhere except where it actually existed, in her own fundamental nature. This is the hidden teaching that threatens modern society. Human beings are not broken creatures who need to be fixed. They are already perfect awareness temporarily confused by the belief that they are something less than perfect. The suffering that drives people to seek external solutions is not evidence of their inadequacy. It's evidence of their confusion about their true nature. You are not a person who sometimes experiences awareness. You are awareness temporarily identifying yourself as a person, and awareness itself is always at peace, always complete, always fulfilled, regardless of the content it contains. Seneca understood this teaching when he wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor." But the deeper meaning that modern society fears is that poverty and wealth are states of mind, not states of circumstance, and the person who recognizes their essential completeness is rich regardless of their external conditions, while the person who believes they lack something essential is poor regardless of their possessions. This teaching eliminates the foundation of consumer capitalism, which depends on people feeling fundamentally inadequate and seeking to fill that inadequacy through purchasing. Let me share the story of Robert, a man who discovered this teaching through the collapse of everything he had built his identity around. Robert was a successful investment banker who had achieved everything society defines as success: seven-figure income, luxury home, expensive cars, beautiful wife, respect from peers, financial security. But Robert was profoundly unhappy in ways he couldn't explain or justify, given that he had everything that was supposed to create satisfaction. He tried all the conventional solutions: therapy to understand his depression, medications to alter his brain chemistry, vacations to provide relief from stress, hobbies to create meaning outside work, but nothing provided lasting relief from the underlying sense that something essential was missing from his life. Then the 2008 financial crisis destroyed Robert's career, his marriage, his financial security, and his social status. Everything he had used to define himself and create happiness was gone, leaving him with nothing but the awareness that observed the loss. Robert expected this awareness to be devastated by the destruction of his identity, but instead he discovered something remarkable. The awareness that was watching his life fall apart was completely unaffected by the falling apart. His essential nature, the part of him that was aware of thoughts, feelings, and experiences, was as peaceful and complete when he had nothing as it had been when he had everything. Robert realized that his happiness had never depended on his external circumstances. It had depended on his recognition of the awareness that was always present regardless of circumstances. He had been seeking in success what was already available in the simple fact of being aware, and his suffering had come not from lacking anything real, but from believing that his true nature was inadequate and needed external enhancement. Robert's awakening wasn't about achieving something new. It was about recognizing something that had never been absent, the perfect peace of pure awareness that is the true identity of every human being. This is why the hidden teaching terrifies modern institutions. It reveals that the search for happiness, meaning, security, and fulfillment is based on a fundamental misunderstanding of what we are. We are not separate individuals who need to connect with something greater. We are expressions of the awareness that is the source of everything. We are not broken beings who need to be healed. We are already whole beings who have forgotten our wholeness. We are not insufficient creatures who need to accumulate experiences, achievements, or possessions to become complete. We are already complete awareness, temporarily fascinated by the story of incompleteness. Epictetus, who had experienced the most extreme external limitations as a slave, discovered this teaching through the recognition that his true self had never been enslaved, because his true self was the awareness that observed slavery without being touched by it. He wrote, "You are not your body, you are not your circumstances, you are not even your thoughts and feelings. You are that which is aware of all these things." But the revolutionary implication that modern society refuses to acknowledge is that if you are pure awareness, then you lack nothing, need nothing, and are already everything you have been seeking to become. The hidden teaching eliminates the basis for all forms of social control because it reveals that external authority can only control your circumstances, not your true nature. The awareness that you are cannot be imprisoned, threatened, bribed, or manipulated because it exists prior to and independent of all the things that can be controlled. This is why totalitarian systems throughout history have always suppressed philosophical teachings that point people toward the recognition of their true nature. You cannot control people who understand that their essential identity is beyond the reach of external authority. Let me tell you about Sarah, a woman who found this teaching through the recognition that her lifelong search for love had been based on a misunderstanding of what she was. Sarah had spent 40 years seeking love from others, convinced that she was fundamentally unlovable and needed to find someone who could provide the love she lacked. Every relationship disappointed her because no one could give her the love she thought she needed, and every breakup confirmed her belief that she was insufficient and unworthy of love. Then Sarah began to investigate the nature of love itself and made a startling discovery. Love is not an emotion that comes and goes based on circumstances. Love is the natural state of awareness when it is not obscured by the belief in separation. Sarah realized that she had been seeking from others what was already the fundamental nature of her own being, and her sense of being unloved had come not from actually lacking love, but from looking for love in places where it could only be found temporarily, rather than recognizing the love that was her own deepest nature. When Sarah stopped seeking love and started being the love that she was, everything changed. She didn't need to find someone to love her because she recognized that she was made of love itself. She didn't need to become lovable because she understood that her true nature was already love appearing as a person named Sarah. She didn't need to heal from past hurts because she saw that the awareness that had experienced the hurts had never been damaged by them, just temporarily convinced that it was separate from love when separation from love is impossible. Sarah's transformation wasn't about finding better relationships. It was about discovering that the love she had been seeking everywhere else had never been absent from what she truly was. Her relationships improved dramatically, not because she had found someone to complete her, but because she was no longer seeking completion from others, and could therefore love them freely rather than needily. Sarah had uncovered the hidden teaching that eliminates the basis for all seeking. What you are looking for, you already are. This is the deepest level of the teaching that modern society fears. The recognition that seeking itself is based on the false premise that you lack something essential, when the truth is that your essential nature is already perfect, complete, and lacking nothing. Every problem you think you have exists only from the perspective of the false identity that believes it is separate from what it seeks. But your true identity as pure awareness has no problems, because it is the source and substance of everything that appears to be a problem. Marcus Aurelius demonstrated this understanding when he faced the challenges of ruling an empire while maintaining perfect equanimity. He didn't manage stress through external techniques. He recognized that his true nature was the awareness in which stress appeared and disappeared without affecting the awareness itself. He didn't achieve peace through changing his circumstances. He found peace through recognizing that his essential nature was already peaceful regardless of circumstances. He didn't become wise through accumulating knowledge. He accessed the wisdom that was already his true nature by recognizing what he had never not been. The emperor wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." But the hidden meaning is that you don't find strength. You recognize that you are strength itself, appearing temporarily as a person who thinks they need to find strength. The mind that you have power over is not your true identity. It's something that appears in your true identity, which is the awareness that observes all mental activity without being disturbed by it. Let me share the final story about Michael, a man who discovered this teaching through the recognition that his lifelong spiritual search had been keeping him from what he was seeking. Michael had spent 20 years practicing meditation, studying religious texts, attending spiritual retreats, working with various teachers and gurus, all in the hope of achieving enlightenment or awakening or union with the divine. But despite decades of sincere practice and study, Michael felt further from his goal than when he started, more aware of his spiritual inadequacy, more convinced that he was missing something essential that others had found. Then Michael had a realization that shattered his entire spiritual worldview. He recognized that the seeker and the sought were the same, that what he was looking for through spiritual practice was what was already looking through his eyes, thinking his thoughts, and experiencing his experiences. The awareness that was seeking enlightenment was already enlightened. The consciousness that was practicing to find God was already God appearing as Michael. The being that was working to achieve awakening was already awake and had always been awake. Michael's spiritual search ended not because he achieved what he was seeking, but because he recognized that he had never been separate from what he was seeking. His true nature had never been unenlightened, unconscious, or separate from the divine. These had been stories appearing in his true nature, which was already perfect awareness pretending to be a person on a spiritual path. Michael discovered that enlightenment is not an achievement but a recognition. Not something you become, but something you realize you have always been. This is the ultimate hidden teaching that modern society fears most. There is no path to happiness, peace, love, or fulfillment, because you are already happiness, peace, love, and fulfillment, appearing temporarily as someone who thinks they need a path. There is no method to find your true nature because your true nature is what is looking for methods. There is no technique to achieve wholeness because wholeness is what is practicing techniques. There is no solution to the human condition because the human condition is a story appearing in the awareness that is beyond all conditions. The recognition of this teaching doesn't make you passive or inactive. It makes you spontaneously appropriate because your actions arise from wholeness rather than from the belief in lack. You don't stop engaging with life. You engage more fully because you're not holding back out of fear that you might lose something you never actually possessed. You don't become indifferent to others. You love more freely because you're not trying to get love from them to fill a lack that doesn't actually exist. You don't stop growing and learning. You grow and learn from curiosity and joy, rather than from the compulsion to fix something that was never broken. When you truly understand this hidden teaching, you realize why it has been suppressed and feared throughout history. It eliminates the basis for all forms of external authority and control by revealing that what you are seeking through external means is already your own true nature. You cannot be sold what you already possess. You cannot be controlled through the promise or threat of getting or losing what you already are, and you cannot be manipulated by systems that depend on your belief in your own inadequacy, when you recognize that inadequacy is impossible for what you truly are. The hidden Stoic teaching reveals that philosophy is not about learning new concepts, but about unlearning false beliefs. Not about acquiring wisdom, but about recognizing the wisdom that is already your true nature. Not about achieving freedom, but about realizing that freedom is what you are and have always been. This recognition transforms everything while changing nothing, because it reveals that everything you thought needed to be different was already perfect expressions of the awareness that you are, and that awareness itself is the peace, love, happiness, and fulfillment that you thought you needed to find somewhere else.